Good morning, everybody. It's Friday, December 20th, 5:30 a.m. Central Time. We're starting late today, guys. We were talking off camera. Now we're late. Anyways, Brian Splits here. Brian, good morning. Mackenzie, good morning. Grain markets are higher. Let's start off with the pending government shutdown, perhaps.
So, the U.S. House of Representatives rejected a Trump backed spending bill on Thursday night. The bill required two-thirds House majority, but failed by a vote of 174 to 235. Nearly 40 Republicans voted against the bill. Earlier this week, a bipartisan agreement was reached on a spending bill that included $31 billion for U.S. farmers. However, President elect Donald Trump and Elon Musk pressured GOP lawmakers to abandon the deal. Without a deal to fund the government, a partial government shutdown will begin tonight at midnight.
Government shutdown pending, Brian. Are you terrified?
No, I mean, I think it'd be cool if we didn't have to worry about the January report. Let the market figure it out for a little while. That'd be nice. Um, I don't know. I think, from their perspective, like they're in here trying to figure out how they can cut costs and having a big bill pushed through right before they come into office to do that is, you know, a lot of pages of a lot of stuff going on in these bills. I don't know what was exactly in this particular one that didn't pass last night, but I know Congress was trying to get a raise. It was like a 40% raise. It was one of the things in the 1,400 some odd pages of the bill from a few days ago. It was just wild.
Yeah, so to be clear, the one that they shut down yesterday was the shortened 116-page bill, but even Republicans didn't like it. Here's a quote. This is Republican Representative Chip Roy. This is one of the ones that went viral. I'm absolutely sickened by a party that campaigns on fiscal responsibility and has the temerity to go to the American people and say, you think this is fiscally responsible. Mike Johnson was asked about the next steps after the failed vote. He said, we'll come up with another solution. Didn't have any real details. Trump said on Truth Social after this was all shut down, Congress must get rid of or extend out to perhaps 2029 the ridiculous debt ceiling. Without this, we should never make a deal. I think that I think the direct farm payments, Brian, are still going to be included here. They were included in both versions. I don't think anybody's necessarily against that. I think it's going to happen, but this may very well kick the can down the road into first quarter of next year.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think I was hearing by March was
Yep.
when payments would be expected. But yeah, you're right. It's been part of both of these CRs, and it seems like it's going to happen. It seems like that there's a lot of pressure to get that through, and I would think that if anything gets passed, that's going to be part of it.
The one thing that they eliminated from the shortened bill was the E15 language, the year-round nationwide E15 that was cut from the shortened version. So we don't that's kind of in flux where it feels to me as if the direct farm payments are probably still inevitable. The government has shut down before 21 times since 1950. The most recent one was 2018 to 2019. That was about this time of year. We shut down for 34 days. There are no USDA reports during government shutdowns, as Brian mentioned. I don't even think we don't get export sales. We don't get anything from the government.
Inspections, none of that.
Yeah. So did they continue to inspect grain though? Like I don't think shipments get paused, do they?
I don't know. I mean, I think the grain still leaves the country. I think that's. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how that works.
Yeah, I was trying to find info on what happened last time, and I don't remember. So if you guys do remember, drop it in the YouTube comments or send us an email. But this has happened before. It's not the end of the world. I think farmers would like some certainty, perhaps, whether or not you agree with the direct payment. Some certainty regarding what's going to happen exactly would be nice. But who knows? This may look different by the time you guys watch this. They might strike a last minute deal, later today before the deadline tonight. Who knows, right?
Joe, it's funny too about the E15 thing. I mean, there's funding that requires taxpayer money to give it out to different wherever it's going, and E15 year round doesn't require any additional tax money. It's just
Right.
giving people a choice year round, and we can't get that through. That's silly.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, what's next?
Soybean futures were able to bounce on Thursday. The most heavily traded March 25 contract posted fresh lows prior to gaining 13 cents on the day. While fundamental news is almost universally bearish, the bounce was able to maintain momentum overnight. The contract may run into technical resistance near the 982 level, which was a previous area of support. Corn futures also bounced on Thursday, while price action in wheat remains mostly lackluster.
Brian, I'm an amateur charter. You're a professional charter. My take would be that old area of support is probably now some degree of resistance.
Yeah, one of the things Mackenzie and I talked about on the premium was the descending triangle, and you have it pretty much drawn there, the downtrend, and then there's kind of a flat base of lows there. I wouldn't be surprised if we go up and hit that old low area, and actually, I wouldn't be surprised if we trade back up through it a little bit. I think you maybe trap some bears here. I think you're going to try and trap some bulls a little bit, and I do think eventually we're going to roll over again. But I wouldn't be surprised to see us retesting $10 a little bit on this recovery bounce. I think there's a lot of rebalancing that's going to be done here at some point, and with fund length in corn, you got funds super short in meal, and I think meal. Especially, and maybe we're going to get to it, but if there's some dryness in Argentina, this meal is going to be very reactive to it.
We got some Argentina news after that. Let's look at a corn chart real quickly. Corn has acted better, and I wrote loose uptrend still in place, question mark. Would you agree with that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we really haven't done anything to violate the uptrend, and I have mine drawn a little bit different from the August lows to the October lows, but this is still, I mean, uptrends are all in the context of different periods of time. So this is the uptrend from the October lows. And, we did fail at the October highs. The 200-day moving average was there. I believe this pullback was about a 62% retracement of the rally from late November to the highs, at least in the July contract it has been. So we haven't done anything bad to say, you know what, this market's not trending higher anymore. It's holding support. And really the line in the sand right now is at 425.5 area basis March.
Above the market, it appeared to me as if a lot of farmer selling emerged when we got near or around that 450 level. Does that happen again? Or if you get up there, do you got a better chance of busting through the second time around?
What I think is going to happen, I think we're going to pop through those highs a little bit. I think we're going to make a new high by 5, 6, 7 cents, and then we're going to back off again. And then we're going to see how that January report, if we do get one, affects the market. But I think there's a good shot that they window dress it into the end of the year and see this market go up and test the highs and maybe make a new high by a little bit.
If that's what happens, that may very well line up with like the upper end of this channel that we've got pictured here. Could be close to that. All right, we mentioned Argentina. Let's jump to that.
So key soybean areas in Argentina are likely to turn drier. The country's corn and soybean areas have seen below normal precipitation during the last 2 weeks. The forecast is even drier. On average, the country's soybean areas are slated to see only 46% of their normal precipitation over the next 2 weeks. Argentina is projected to account for 12% of global soybean production this year. Meanwhile, Brazil's weather forecasts remain favorable, mostly favorable. Most key soybean areas will see above normal rainfall over the next 2 weeks.
Okay, so during the last 2 weeks, Argentina soybean areas saw 74% of their normal rainfall. That's not terrible. It's the next 2 weeks that look problematic. And I had a typo in the copy. They're actually supposed to see 36% of normal rainfall, Argentina soybean country, over the next 2 weeks. Is this part of the reason the bean market was able to bounce, Brian?
I think it's a culmination of a couple of things, right? I think we got a little oversold. We probably sold off a little much when we took out those lows and priced in quite a bit in a short period of time. But I think what the market really to watch right now, if you're thinking Argentina and is it a problem, is soy meal. The funds are record or near record. We'll find out how the commitment to trader report looks, but they're record and near record on shorts on soy meal. And when you have, we look at where meal went this week, we actually traded below the COVID lows on a front month basis by a fraction of a dollar a ton. It was 0.3. And so when you think about how cheap meal is, and if we have a problem in Argentina with the funds as short as they are, this meal market is going to move. So we were up, $4 or $5 yesterday. We're up $4 or $5 this morning. I think meal could get really active if they truly perceive Argentina to be an issue.
Okay, so Argentina is only 12% of global soybean production, but there are some bigger implications when it comes to the products. Explain that for the people.
Right, Brazil would typically export soybeans, and while Argentina is not the largest producer of soybeans, they export the majority of their beans through soy meal. I think it's roughly about a third of the world's meal exports. So when there were years previously. There was a drought in Argentina a few years ago, and we had meal really take off. There was a flood in 2016 where the beans were in the field, they were ready to be harvested, then they flooded. They got like 5 to 7 million tons of their production was lost. Meal absolutely skyrocketed. That took beans up a couple bucks in that period of time. So there is just because of how short the funds are, if this is we will know if the market perceives it as a true possible issue by how meal reacts to it. I feel pretty strongly about that.
Very good. Brazil's forecast is very good. It's almost ideal. The vast majority of Brazilian soybean growing areas are going to see above normal precipitation, not by a ton, but over the next 14 days, with the exception of the far south. But they had some heavy rains in the far south recently, and this just appears to be a setup for a record crop. The estimates are coming up. You're seeing a lot of stuff in the 170s now for the Brazilian soybean crop, so no problems there.
Chicago wheat futures declined for the sixth consecutive session on Thursday. The most heavily traded March 25 contract fell by as much as 1.9%, reaching its lowest level since late August. The decline was attributed to a strong U.S. dollar and concerns over ample global supplies. According to the USDA, this season's global wheat production is anticipated to be the largest on record. Chicago wheat futures are currently on their longest losing streak since late June. However, the downward slide may ease as earlier this week, Russian consulting group Sovcon cut its forecast for the 2025 crop to the lowest level since 2021.
Gosh, Brian, wheat is a dog, especially Chicago SRW wheat, which made new lows just yesterday.
Yeah, based on the scope of this pullback, I mean, you could see there was kind of like a 580 to 540 break, and then this one's about 570 to 530. So it seems like it wants to move in these 40-cent clips. We need to get back over that 540 area. That was, August lows were at 42.5. Then we had some lows in early December at 40.25. If we could get back above 540, we're probably going to go check that 560 area and maybe find resistance there, make another leg down to 520. But wheat is firmly entrenched in a downtrend. And it's funny, yeah. I mean, the sentiment is the strong dollar and what that is going to do. But the dollar has been strong. Wheat exports this week were actually really good. They were substantially above the previous, and not only above the previous, but if I read your morning update, also above the 4-week average. And that was not the case for corn or beans. So wheat exports have been very solid.
This is a head scratcher for me. I don't buy that this is all just the currency. I mean, like you said, the dollar's been strong. Seems like fresh headlines have been lacking. And if anything, you've seen some positive stuff, like, lighter Russian crop potentially. Exports are good. It's just like the market just wants to go lower. Looking at a monthly chart to kind of pull this back, we're back to the upper end of what was your pre-COVID range from like 2016 through 2019. I mean, that's not cool.
No, so here's two markets that we're mentioning the word COVID. One is meal and one is wheat. And while meal got down to the 2020 lows, we're not very far away on wheat. And so wheat is cheap. I think meal is cheap, and then I think corn relative to those looks expensive. But we're all trading our own individual fundamentals. I just think too, when you think about corn versus wheat and the ability to price wheat into feed rations, I think that's something that we're going to see. The wheat's going to be used a little bit faster and maybe as a replacement for some corn.
When you think about the price action over the last 3 years, it's pretty damn incredible. I mean, you did a round trip from $5 to almost $14 on the board when Russia invaded Ukraine, right back to $5. I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up. It's pretty crazy. What's next?
And we do it all the time, right? I mean, we do it in corn, we do it in beans, 2012, 22. I mean, everything's just, you go too high and then you go too low.
Yep.
So U.S. soybean export sales increased last week. Net soybean sales were reported at 52 million bushels. The print was up 21% from the previous week, but down 27% from the prior 4-week average. China was the largest soybean buyer for the week. Net corn sales were reported at 46 million bushels. The print was up 24% compared to the previous week, but down 10% from the prior 4-week average. Mexico was the largest corn buyer. Net wheat sales were reported at 17 million bushels. The print was up 58% from the previous week and up 16% from the prior 4-week average. The Philippines were the largest wheat buyer for the week.
I don't have anything bad to say about any of this. Those were good looking numbers. Corn export book is great.
Yeah, we had 1 week where it pulled back a little bit, not this week, but the last week. Otherwise, Mexico continuing to be the top buyer. I think weeks where we sell more than 1 million tons of corn is a positive week in general. China's the biggest buyer of soybeans right now again. So the exports really have been a bright spot. Obviously, the USDA felt that when we had the December WASDE report to increase corn for export by 150 million bushels. I don't know how much is left to go of that strong export story on the corn balance sheet. I think as we get moving forward, we're going to start to transition more towards what the new crop balance sheet looks like, especially when we start plugging the acres and what a trend line yield looks. And so some of this strong, friendly old crop, balance sheet talk will lose a little bit of its luster as we get into maybe the back end of the first quarter of 2025.
And that seems to be general consensus among traders is that, yeah, it's great. It's good now, but just wait until Brazil comes online, and we hope that that's wrong. Of course, we hope the general consensus is wrong and that this somehow continues. It's hard to fathom that it will continue in soybeans if Brazil is as good as advertised. I mean, it's very difficult to imagine that. Wheat sales have been pretty good. Did USDA come up with wheat exports last week? I think they did by a little bit, right?
Oh, I don't know. I was so focused on corn. I think there was
I think they came up.
I'd have to go look, but if it was a very minor adjustment. I think the balance sheet got trimmed just a touch.
Yep. Okay. Let's keep going.
Agco's shares plummeted on Thursday. Shares of the agricultural machinery maker fell as much as 6.1% before recovering slightly to close the day with a 3.8% loss. The decline comes as the company announced 2025 net sales are projected to be roughly $9.6 billion, down from this year's estimated $12 billion. The reduction in sales is partly due to Agco's divestment of its grain storage and livestock business. The struggling farm economy is also weighing on sales. Agco's North American retail sales are projected to decline by 25% next year.
Agco makes a bunch of things that you're familiar with. Their brands include Challenger, Fendt, Gleaner, GSI, Massey Ferguson, a couple of others. They're down 25% year to date. Brian, I think this just speaks to what's going on in the farm economy.
Yeah, and maybe undoubtedly there was some of the move yesterday was because of the overall, or the last couple of days, the overall market direction. But yes, I think in general this does speak to the health of the ag economy. And we're at a pretty major area. You could see if we were to trade below 80, I mean, this market, this particular stock has quite a bit of downside. You've got what looks to be, kind of a descending triangle to a double top up there, and below $80 a share on this is going to send this particular stock quite a bit lower.
So if and when U.S. farmers get their $10 billion in direct payments, is that going to give a shot in the arm to companies like this?
I don't know. I think
it's not enough to make the farmer to fix their balance sheets automatically. Like, it'll help, but
I think the money, when it goes to the producer, is going to get passed directly to the lender, to the seed salesman, to buy fertilizer. I don't know if it's going to go necessarily to a brand like this, but
there's a reason why Farm Credit was one of the biggest advocates for the direct payments, because they want their money back.
This is correct.
That is correct. Okay, Drought Monitor.
Alrighty, so parts of the Corn Belt received precipitation last week, and as a result, drought conditions improved across portions of Ohio, Michigan, Illinois, Iowa, and Missouri. Conditions worsened slightly over in western Missouri. The High Plains received scattered precipitation. Conditions improved in northeast Nebraska and southwest Kansas. When we look at the percentage of U.S. areas experiencing drought, corn country 54%, soybeans 47%, winter wheat 27%, spring wheat 33%, and cattle country 37%.
Do you have concerns about Midwest drought or drought in the central to northern plains right now, Brian, or is this something that does not matter right now?
I tend to not get too ahead of myself as far as drought potential in December. However, I will say that one of the weather guys, if you will, that I respect the most, does have a higher level of concern for drought potential for our growing season. And he would say in the last 10 years, the highest level of concern. And it's because there's several things that do kind of line up. Number one is the percent of the growing region that's in a drought currently, the potential for the La Nina and how that builds, and then Pacific Decadal Oscillation were kind of the three things that he was talking about. Again, weather is very hard to predict a month. I mean, it's all physics, right? It's hard to predict. And as one thing changes, it changes something else. But, 2 weeks out is hard enough, not 6 months out. But again, this is not something I'm going to trade, the idea of drought in December. No.
You said a couple of words there that I didn't understand, and I'll just take your word for it that you know what you're talking about. The forecast is dry-ish for the next 7 days. This is your 7-day QPF. Some rain is supposed to come back into, call it the eastern half of the Corn Belt around Christmas, that period from Christmas out through January 4th. So it's not totally dry, but the plains from North Dakota all the way down to Texas are going to stay on the dry side. What did cattle do yesterday?
Cattle futures had a rough day. Live cattle were 95 cents to 202 lower. Feeders saw losses ranging from 252 to 320 lower. We do have a cattle on feed report coming out this afternoon. Cattle on feed as of December 1st are expected to come in right around 100% of year-ago levels. Placements during November are anticipated to be roughly 96% of year-ago levels, and marketings last month are slated to be right around 98% compared to last year.
Should we be worried about additional downside in the cattle market before year end, Brian?
I mean, you got a couple things lining up. On the chart perspective, we did take out some support yesterday, closed below it on feeders. We have, some pretty good length from the funds that makes it, I think, vulnerable. So again, if anything else, I mean, it's just one of those things where it does require having at least some coverage when you get to these lofty levels. Whether you see kind of a shorter term break like we've seen numerous times, or if this is the beginning of a larger break, it's hard to say, because a lot of that may have to do with things that are going on outside of the cattle industry itself, right? Some of the more macro things. And I really think that the way the stock market traded the other day, and probably how we're trading this morning, may influence some of the cattle direction as well.
Yeah, outside markets are moving today. U.S. dollar's off a little bit. The stocks are getting beat up. The S&P's down 52 points. The Dow's down 190. Crude oil's down 79 cents. And the March WTI 68.16. Have a great weekend, guys. Brian, thank you for joining us. We'll be back on Monday.